All right, fantastic. Excited to be here. How you doing, Micah? Haven't seen you in a while.
I'm doing well, John. It's good to see you, my friend.
Griffin, pleasure to meet you.
You
Excited
too. Great to be here.
Excited to talk about the class today. Now, quick introduction for everybody. My name is John Gormflow. I'm the director of training at Hackers Teaching Hackers. It's a hacking conference in Columbus, Ohio. Has a bit of a regional draw, but we're drawing folks from all over the place at this point. Somebody drove all the way from Atlanta to the conference last year, which was awesome. So, but we've got some training that we're running this year, and we're going to spend a few minutes here talking to Micah Hoffman, and I'll let Micah introduce himself real quick.
Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Micah Hoffman. I go by Web Breacher online on all the socials. I am the owner and the lead instructor of the OSINT training company, as well as doing a whole bunch of other things in the open source intelligence community, like running the OSINT Curious project and doing some other stuff. And I'm thrilled to be here.
And I'll go next. My name is Griffin Glenn. I go by Hatless Wonder online. I am also an instructor at the OSINT training site and a handful of other things as well. I work with the National Child Protection Task Force as their director of intelligence. And I also am one of the co-founders of OSINT Games, Capture the Flag learning platform, and probably a bunch of other things too, but it seems good for now.
Like the older I get, the more titles and roles I have, and like, should I leave that one off? I also am associated with OSINT Games as well, so.
I was not going to tell people that.
Oh, come on.
Fantastic. Now, quick link for them. This is their training site, so you can go see it. Now, you guys have on-demand classes as well, right?
That's right. OSINT training is purely focused on open source intelligence, and we have a large number of videos and courses that are pre-recorded that people can take for very reasonable prices, or they can sign up for the entire OSINT training bundle for a one price per year. This is a neat class for us, our OSINT Immersion class, because it's newer content that we're bringing in from some other sources that Griffin and I have taught for years, and we're kind of doing that. I don't know if, John, you look like you might have been into like the Super Friends back when you were younger, doing the Wonder Twin powers, Okay, maybe I'm dating myself.
Captain Planet, right?
Okay, all right. There were like 5 kids right there,
Yeah.
But Wonder Twins were just 2 kids. So,
okay.
One of the neatest things about OSINT training is that it's not about me. It's about taking some of the best people in open source intelligence and having them teach you. So I'm very excited that Griffin's joined us, and there'll be others in the near future.
Awesome. Fantastic. And you are offering one of those classes at Hackers Teaching Hackers this year. And you can get details about the conference and the training itself at this year's page, which is 2022.hthackers.com. So check that out. We'd love to see everybody out there. We'll stream a little bit across the bottom here. One of the most important things on that thing streaming across the bottom, there is a registration code to save you $100 on the training if you register by September 10th. So just to make sure folks pay attention to that piece. Now, the course itself, right, is the OSINT Immersion, Uncovering Online Secrets. So what is that training really about?
Well, I can tell you, but I think Griffin really wants to say something here. So Griff, why don't you take it and tell everybody about the course?
Yes. So OSINT is such a popular topic, and it reaches into so many different disciplines. Obviously, the cyber world being one of those. What we've found over the years throughout our training is that the pyramid of people interested in OSINT and involved in whatever their discipline is that leverages it, being so much wider at the bottom where the entry level is. And so what we try to do is craft something that touches a broad variety of topics that are applicable to people getting into open source intelligence, but also relevant to those that have been in it for a while or have some kind of working foundational knowledge of it. So you can come to this class whether you're first starting out and you really just want to see what this is all about and, dip your toe into the water, so to speak, or if you've been in it for a while and you want to broaden your horizons a little bit, see some new or interesting perspectives on topics that you have maybe looked at before, maybe get exposed to new resources. So, we try to make it valuable to that wide section of audience.
Very cool. So like the technical skills required to get into it are kind of low, right? Which
If
is
you can type on a keyboard, you can come in. And I mean, just Griffin, just to share some of the great topics that we have in there. This really is like we call it the immersion class because once you take this class, you kind of understand a lot about how open source intelligence techniques are used, whether you're finding people, researching an email address or a username, looking in social medias, or maybe you're somebody that is looking at domains, IP addresses, websites, or businesses. We're going to touch on all of those areas in this hands-on, exercise-driven course, and I think it's going to be a whirlwind of 2 days, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and students are going to leave with a lot of great skills.
fantastic, fantastic. No, I'm always kind of curious of the origin of classes like this, or usually somebody had a problem they're trying to solve, or there was a situation where they really needed to know something and they just had trouble finding the information to learn how to do it. So, what was kind of the driver to create the class?
Griffin, if you're okay, I'll take this one.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple of drivers. First off, Griffin and I have a great bromance, and I can say that on air, right? I can. Yeah.
It's recorded now. It's out.
Wait,
Now, right?
we're official. Griffin and I work really well together, and when we started really figuring out where his area of expertise is and where my area of expertise is, it was very much complementary. And we're like, this is something that we can take the chocolate and the peanut butter, put them together, and make something really delicious and good for other people. So the first driver was to work together and to create like a really great, trustworthy, actionable class where people come out of it and they learn some great skills. The second thing was, I used to work for a training company and I had a class over there, and there was a lot of that material that I own that I could put into this new courseware. So there's some of that material in this as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, obviously, to get folks into OSINT, make these things a bit more approachable, but more specifically, like who tends to benefit the most from taking these kinds of classes?
I think the people who benefit the most are those that have a creative mind, that are creative problem solvers, and can think beyond the basics of what we teach them. So, our intention is to expose them to the nuts and bolts of how open source intelligence works, focused on those different entities that Micah mentioned. But we also will show them how you can connect those pieces together throughout an investigation or engagement. And the folks who naturally gravitate towards that kind of pivotal thinking are really going to get a lot out of this class, because we're going to lay the foundation for a lot of really cool stuff that you can pivot from.
And if I can just add to that, John, one of the things that I always loved about cybersecurity when I did that was that I could bring my work home. If I wanted to test out some new exploit or learn how to code or whatever, I could set up a virtual machine, I could set up my own environment, and I could work on that stuff in my home on the off hours. What I've found over the years is that open source intelligence, or OSINT, is very similar to that. At a personal level, there's things that you and I do, whether it's finding a roommate from college that you lost touch with, researching an email address of barrister Jim at hotmail.com.za that just emailed you $60 million winnings, or other things like that we as just people in the world want to know more about. How do we research these things? So yeah, if you're doing open source intelligence, come take the class. We're going to have some things for you. If you're doing cyber, absolutely, we're going to fill in some gaps and show you how to research IPs and domains and put things together. But if you're just a person that likes looking for things online, likes searching for things or diving deeper into different topics, this is really a good class for you as well.
Awesome, awesome. So if somebody comes in and they're kind of brand new to this stuff, there's aspects of that you said, just like tracking people down. There's other good things going to be a little bit more focused on the technical side. Um, what will people really take away from it if they take the class? What should they be able to do when they get home?
I think I'll go first, Griffin, and I know you have some stuff to say. I think
Mhm.
the main thing that we try to teach is analysis. Open source intelligence is great. I love finding things. I love doing the gathering. I love running tools, but it's how do we think and where do we go from that piece of data that is absolutely key to success, whether you're doing pen testing, researching who's hacking your website, or doing some other research. So that analysis piece is what Griffin and I both bring to the class. We make students think.
Yep,
Griff?
absolutely, and we try to make it tangible. So some of the things that they'll take away are actual experiences themselves of seeing how the stuff goes into action, seeing how the pieces can be found and connected together, being able to have that experience themselves, and then also take those resources back to their own work or their own life, and kind of have that. Um, that foundation, that catalog of things that they can draw upon the next time they have an email address to work off of, or start investigating a website, a domain, and they want to remember, hey, what kinds of things that I see in that class that I can take to this engagement.
And
Nice.
I'll add one more thing. Griffin and I have looked at the resources, the tools, the techniques that we're going to be teaching, and while those are going to be very foundational in what you can do in the world of OSINT, we realize that in 2 days we can't teach you everything. So one of the first things we do in the course is give you like a whole bunch of resources of places that you can go when you go back to work, when you go back home, and you're like, oh, they taught me how to do this on that social media platform, but I don't know how to do it on this one because there wasn't time in the class. They can refer back to those resources that we've provided and continue to learn and grow even after the course.
That's fantastic, because that's one of the biggest challenges as a student is you experience this amazing training, and then you go back and it's like, where do I start, right?
Yeah.
And that next step is difficult.
Yep.
So it's awesome to have those additional resources available. Beyond what comes with the class, like where else should people either find you or find more information about your companies and what you do with OSINT? Um, post event, or if for some reason they can't attend the event.
Griffin?
Sure. So, we both have a fairly large social presence in the OSINT community. So we can pretty easily be found via our handles, WebBreacher and Atlas Wonder. You can find training offerings that are being added regularly to the myosint.training website. So there'll be more specialized modules in there, some, package offerings and things coming along. Um, Mike, obviously, being part of the OSINT Curious project, that's a great place to learn, a great community. They have an amazing Discord that has tons and tons of people in it, thousands of people that are enthusiastic about OSINT and about helping each other become better. So my encouragement to everybody, and this will probably run throughout the entire class that we have, is get involved in the community, because there's so much community knowledge out there and so many great people willing to work with you or teach you tips and tricks, and keep the learning going beyond just whatever you experience during those 2 days with us.
Yeah, I echo what you said, Griffin. You're such an eloquent speaker. I love working with you, man. But it's true. It's true. You follow Griffin on Twitter. You follow me on Twitter. You look at who we are connected to, the projects we're associated with. MyOSINT training is obviously a website that we would want to focus people on, but we also recognize that it's sometimes it's great to be in class, but it's also really fun to be out of class and trying things ourselves. So Griffin and I have created an online capture the flag platform for open source intelligence called OSINT.games. And you go to OSINT Games, you can sign up for a CTF capture the flag platform where we ask you questions and ask you to go out there in the world and find them. And it's a great opportunity to take some of the things that you might learn in class and apply them in semi-real world situations. And again, John, one of the things that Griffin and I are always trying to do is tie things together. So like in the CTF, we have not just find this bit of data, but now go ahead and find the next piece of data and work through kind of an investigative pathway, just like what you would do with discovery of a vulnerability, and then exploiting that, and then pivoting to a new location. So, yeah, come see us. We're out there on the internet.
Yeah, awesome. Now I assume you gentlemen like beer.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So the conference is held in a brewery. So kind of
That
cool
doesn't
thing.
suck.
Yeah, I was already going to be there anyway. I didn't know there was a conference at all.
He's like,
After you and I talked, John, I was like, "Hey, Griffin, there's a training that we could do. It's in a brewery," and he said, "Don't even have to say and, Micah. I'm there. I don't care the date, the time. I'll be there." It's like, all right.
fantastic, right? Yeah, so it's in Canal Winchester, just outside of Columbus, Ohio. It is actually, I think, BrewDog. If you're familiar with BrewDog, it was their first brewery in the U.S. And when they built the brewery, they also built a hotel. So it's like a hotel brewery combo.
Dangerous.
So it's
Yeah.
a lot.
People might not know, but there is an OSINT connection to beer drinking.
Is there?
Yeah, there is. Micah can tell you all about it, actually.
Oh,
Actually,
yes.
we'll teach it in the class. We'll teach it in the class.
I remember.
Yep,
Or at
the
least
Untapped beer drinking website.
yeah. Do you want like give a preview of that? Like tell a little bit about what it is, like what you can find.
Sure. I mean, the idea is that people sign up for an account on this social media application called untapped.com. That's untappd.com. And they sign up for an account there. And then when they go and they get a beer, they will take that beer, they'll take a picture of it, then they'll log it on their website and say, "Oh, I drank this beer with John and Griffin in this location at BrewDog at this date at this time. It was great." And the fun thing about that from an open source intelligence perspective is that unless they have made their account private, which the default is public, we can gain access to their beer drinking activity or their beer logging activity. We don't know if they actually drank any of the beers. And so I wrote a Python script to harvest that data and then reveal trends, patterns, days of the week they drink, hours of the day they drink, locations where they drink, makes a nice heat map. And then, and so in class, that's one of the things that we sometimes talk about is, what does it matter if somebody's posting their beer drinking activity? The aggregation and the analysis can sometimes be very, very challenging.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
The venue itself is there's a museum actually for BrewDog, but I would love to see like the analysis of like check-ins at BrewDog, right, and see how many.
Yeah.
Can't cross-reference against attendees, but I would be interested to see what that number looks like as the conference unfolds, right?
Yeah, you can easily take that data and pivot away. If you have somebody's handle or you discover a handle of interest, you can see what parts of the world they visit, maybe correlate it with other profiles related to that handle, try and tie it back to an actual name, find physical location ties to that name. That's the kind of stuff we talk about in the classes, not just how do you go find X piece of data, but how do you use it to find Y and Z afterwards? And that's what makes it fun.
So, John, I was teaching this type of thing in a class one time, and one of my students said, "It's terrific, Micah, that you can track a person through their drinking activities, but there's this bar right outside of my work. Could you just watch that bar and then record everybody that checks in and then analyze that for what dates and times they check in?" Which is kind of what you're talking about, right? It's look at the BrewDog and see who's checking in and all that. And the answer is yes, absolutely. I wrote another Python script that does that. And actually, since 2019, I've been once a day, this script checks who has checked in at over 70 different airports around the world. So I've got about 3 years worth of data of people checking in and traveling around the world. Yeah, John.
Already scared someone.
Good. That's the whole point of this, right? If you make your profile private, I can't do any of that, John.
Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know, John Harper's actually the founder of the conference originally. So
cool.
He's but there's always things for all of us to learn on in terms of OSINT, what our exposures are, right?
Yeah.
Are there any stories that you can share of like real life situations that have been impacted by some of the OSINT that you've done and the skills that people will learn in this class?
I I think some of the most impactful things are things that Griffin's done with the NCPTF, the National Child Protection Task Force, and some of the other work he's done. You want to share a story, Griff?
Sure, sure. So in my role with NCPTF, and by the way, check them out at ncptf.org. It's a great nonprofit helping missing, exploited, and trafficked children around the world. We support investigative efforts of law enforcement agencies around the globe with a number of different things, but one of them specifically is open source intelligence. And myself and a team of people work on those cases and provide OSINT intel, for perhaps a missing endangered child or a victim of, abuse, things like that. I have a million cases of how OSINT has helped to resolve or lead to the piece of information that resolved one of those cases. But one story that I do like to tell, and I'll have to leave some of the specifics out here because of the venue. I had a request from an agent in a U.S. agency, and they said, we have this missing young person, and we've exhausted all of the typical avenues that we take right off the bat. Reaching out to the big data providers and places that you would expect to have location information on devices and things like that. And they didn't have anything for us. This person did not have their device when they left their home, and they've been gone. They're in danger. The only thing that we have is we know that they were in contact with this particular user on a video game platform. But after contacting that provider, the only information they had on the account was an email address, and we haven't been able to resolve that to a person. So I took that information and I worked with that email address using some of the techniques and tools that we're going to talk about in the 2-day class. And I was able to locate the use of that username portion of the email on an application for an account that had almost no presence, but it was connected to several other accounts with similar naming conventions. And so I pivoted my way through this little network of people that I determined were probably a family, and then use that information to locate that family in other social media that helped to solidify their actual identification and location and things like that. Provided that back to the agency, who followed up with them, and it turns out that they were able to resolve it to that being the person that they were looking for behind that profile, and that person had a piece of information that led to the safe recovery of that child 28 hours away from home in another state in very bad circumstances. So really proud of the way that case turned out. I did all that work in the span of maybe an hour or two, in a case that they had, thrown the kitchen sink at already. So that was a pretty big win.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's like those are real lives, real people impacted by the work that you're doing. So, on behalf of everybody, thank you for the work you do there, because that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
And
there's a lot of opportunities to do the. We call it OSINT for good. There's a lot of opportunities for people to volunteer if they have the right skills, and also get paid to do some things, whether it's finding missing people or people that are being trafficked, or doing many other things in open source intelligence. And I think, John, that's one of the things that Griffin and I bring to our students is what is if this is something that I'm excited about, open source intelligence, what could I actually do with it? Throughout the class, we're constantly relating things back to real life examples, real life stories that he and I and our colleagues have shared over the years. So when you come and you take the class from us, it's not just, oh, I learned how to do a username search. It's I learned how to do a username search, and now I know I could use it in all these situations. So it's kind of fun.
the teach a man to fish kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep.
The
And
F
teach
or the
them
PH,
where
either way.
to fish.
What's that?
I was going to say, and not only teach them how to fish, but teach them where to fish as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's fantastic. Anything else that people really should know about the class before we wrap it up here?
We really do our best to make it unlike the typical classroom setting, and maybe not as engaging type training. So we really think through, how do we give you the theory that you need in order to be able to understand what you're learning, But then, like Micah said, how do we make it tangible? So, we give you resources that are useful because everybody likes tools and resources and things like that. But we show you how those things work, and we give you examples, sometimes anecdotal, like what we just did here, but we give you examples to make that tangible so that you have that kind of brain connection between the work. And we try to reach everyone. We don't want to leave anybody behind. And that's one of the reasons why we keep it very broad in terms of how many topics we cover, and not as deep, for depth of knowledge, so that we can make sure that everybody gets stuff out of the class.
I think the other thing, John, is that Griffin and I have been doing open source intelligence, cybersecurity, and investigations for literally decades. And so when somebody comes to the class, whether they're a senior cyber person that has been doing red teaming or whatever, and they come and they're like, well, you're only teaching me, this, and this. That's not where our knowledge ends. Much like what you do through your teaching, John, you know so much more than is what's being presented in the class. And so when students come and they're like, hey, I had this experience, how would you deal with that? I know it's not in the courseware. Griffin and I are always happy to provide direction, show additional tools and stuff. Those 2 days that we're in class are all about the students and making sure that they get the most out of the class and the time.
Awesome. Absolutely fantastic. Well, very excited to have you guys at the conference and to run the class. Can't wait to get you there. It's going to be an absolute blast. Again, the training dates themselves are November 1st and 2nd. And then the conference runs the 3rd and the 4th. The conference is slightly different for anybody that's never been there. The first day of the conference, November 3rd, is 100% villages. So everything is hands-on for that day.
What is I know a lot of OSINT people have no idea what you mean by village. Can you explain?
Sure. So the village,
if I can interview you for a moment.
Yeah, sure. Right. The villages are, the way we have it set up is it'll look almost like a vendor booth. But the main area where we're going to do the presentation stuff the next day, we just have tables set up with a few people running that specific village, and there'll be a topic that they're teaching about, and then some hands-on activities to reinforce the information that they share with you. And we have a little bit of everything. We've got some new ones this year. We're going to have a cloud village, which is all about hacking the cloud and gathering information, getting shells from the cloud and that kind of thing, for anybody interested in the hacking side. There's an Active Directory village, which is all about hacking and defending Active Directory. There's a tamper evident village, so like physical access to things and tamper evident envelopes and locks and things like that. So you can mess with some of those things, actually try and get around the tamper evident controls. But we're working on streams and videos for those as well, so we can get more information out about what those villages are and what people can expect to learn from those. But lots coming there. So we have 8 different villages this year, which is more than we've had in the past. Lockpicking village. I'm trying to remember the other ones just off the top of my head, but
so the villages happen on the 3rd, and then on the 4th is a full day of talks.
Full day of talks. We sent out the announcements earlier this week. We're working on finalizing some keynotes, and then we'll get all those posted to the site as well.
Really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yep, very excited. Now, if anybody is interested in the training, you can find information about the training at the 2022.hthackers.com/training. And again, until September 10th, you can save $100 with the code earlybird 100 at checkout. All right. So fantastic. Looking forward to seeing you guys there, and hopefully we'll see everyone else there as well.
That sounds great. Thanks, John, for having us on.
All right. Thanks for being here, guys.